What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Layback Podcast. Joining us today is SJ Mousseau. SJ is quite the journeyman. For those of you that were with us way back in the early days of Flex Pro Grip, you may remember the name Peachy Ballet. I think SJ is following in Peachy's footsteps. SJ, this is my reminder now to myself to connect you with Peachy at some point because as far as travelers across the country go, just for opportunities in the game that we know and love, you are following that dude's footsteps. So I think you guys could share some stories. But SJ, it's an honor to have you on. I know I probably stole a little bit of your thunder there talking about traveling across the country. Naturally, you're doing the interview from a car, but thankfully this time the car is parked next to a building with Wi-Fi. With you always on the move, I feel like that's the risk we take, but looking forward to the conversation today. So where are you actually tapping in from today, SJ?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the journeyman journey because that's how I perfectly describe just not only just like my journey in coaching, but just my overall baseball and life journey in general. But I'm just outside of 3PD Performance in my car just because as great as 3PD is, with advancement and tools, my office is still just behind a door in which it's like, okay, we can still hear like the cage is going, the plyo ball's being thrown. So we're going to roll with this. We're going to embrace this today.
Good. Yeah. If you're anything like me, every plyo ball against a wall or every ding of a metal bat would be another distraction. And I don't know if I'm the best public speaker, but anytime something starts dinging, I get significantly worse.
Like I feel you there completely.
SJ, how about you take it away for a quick little bio? Of course, I know there's a lot that goes into who you are, but maybe the elevator pitch, just to give people a little bit of a background, would be a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's SJ Mousseau. I'm originally from Boulder, Colorado. Played high school at Fairview High. Go Knights. I wasn't really the best athlete growing up. I played 4 years of football. I happened to be a four-year letterman in varsity football, but I wasn't really the best athlete growing up. I topped out at like 72 miles per hour my senior year and only had one college offer, largely due to the fact that I'm 6'4", but just had a lot of setbacks growing up. And I think that's what made me the coach I am today. Diagnosed with three learning disabilities, deaf in my left ear. I lost my father at the age of 16. So had a lot of setbacks, but that's definitely helped me throughout my journey. Started out my journey at Barstow College in California, played 1 year there. Then I was like, I'd never want to visit Barstow again. So I transferred to Western Nebraska Community College, had a probably my best college season there, which earned me a scholarship to Upper Iowa University. After 3 years at Upper Iowa, that includes the COVID year, I had one more year of eligibility and I decided to take my talents to North Park University to play one more year of college ball with a couple of my best friends. And pretty much right after North Park, I had actually got hired by Driveline Baseball. And before that, I spent a summer internship at Push Performance, both as throwing trainers. And then immediately after my time at Driveline, got a director of pitching role at Erskine College, a small D2 in South Carolina. After that, earned a spot as the pitching coach at St. Cloud State University, which was my most recent stop. And now I'm here at 3PD in Waterford, Michigan, just getting after it.
Love it. SJ, you've obviously taken every single opportunity and ran full steam ahead. You're hungry for knowledge, trying to learn everything you can from various places. Let's start there. I feel like the way I view your content, I see you somewhat as an aggregator in a way because I know you've been so many places. So you've had a handful of mentors in this game. You've been
Yeah.
on the private side, you've been in college baseball. Maybe highlight a few of the people that you feel have shaped who you are.
To be honest with you, that there's too many people, but I would say just to name maybe the top five people that come up to mind is, well, for starters, Andrew Amato and the entire team of Push Performance just giving me the chance because without them, I wouldn't have got my start in coaching in general. Not to mention just learning the little basic things like, all right, what is a riding fastball? What defines a sweeper? Or what's proper layback? Just little small things like that. And then I mean, I too many people at Driveline to highlight, but I think the big one that gave me that chance was Jackson Sigmund, who was at the time pitching coordinator. If you're affiliated or indie ball team looking for a low slot righty, he's currently a free agent, and I don't
He's
think
that
that's
dude.
yeah, I don't think they'll regret him. As well as Coach Dolan and then Coach Crocco at Erskine and St. Cloud State, and well, now with my new role, Max Bain, who I'm learning from every single day. And I mean, I can't get enough knowledge from that guy. Not only is he a great coach, but he has 4 years playing with the Cubs. I think his story is definitely worth hearing, but just learning about that and learning his experiences and his knowledge is definitely amazing, to say the least.
For sure. I think we're going to keep some of the hot topics with Max on the DL because definitely want to have him on at some point. But you're right, his story is pretty incredible. The rise from indie ball all the way up to throwing, I think he said 99.9 miles per hour is the hardest he's ever thrown a ball. So he won't give himself 100, which I don't know. I would say I respect, but I can't fathom a ball leaving my hand that fast. I tend to think anything over 95 might as well be 100. So he is certainly in that camp.
Oh yeah, for sure. I kill for that. I think the hardest ball off the mound I threw was 88, and I don't know what I had to eat that day to do that, but I think I'm not even kidding about this. My last pitch was my hardest pitch ever.
Hey, at least you can hang your hat on that. That's kind of how I feel ending my career. It's always weird for me to talk about doing so much in the pitching world now, focusing so much on elbow injuries. But I was a middle infielder. My last ever at bat was against a sidearm lefty, and I was leading off the inning. And if you go back in my career as a little kid, the things that I was always afraid of was swinging first pitch,
Okay.
leading off, and facing lefties. I was a left-handed hitter. And
Okay.
lo and behold, the last at bat that I ever took in baseball was a sidearm lefty that was brought in specifically to try to get me out. And I went line drive right back up the box. Nothing that cool, just a single up the middle. But being able to hang my hat on, I guess, a final at bat that rounded up everything that I fought through when I was a little kid, it just felt so good. So I'm sure there's aspects of that with you ripping your final bullet as the hardest one that you've ever thrown.
Well, I will say this: that bullet ended up being a walk-off homer, unfortunately.
Shh. No, nobody cares about that. You didn't need to add that part of the story.
Well, I consider it just big on my story because it just shows that in my career that I have zero regrets because
Fair.
in that position, me being at North Park, I should have been done with baseball 2 years earlier. In reality, if you saw me in high school, I should have been done 6 years earlier. I shouldn't have been a college baseball player. So that's why I consider that significant.
Well, what do you credit all of that to, SJ? You say your career should have been done 2 years earlier. You obviously got the COVID year back. You had a redshirt year somewhere in there that you got back. So you got to play as a sixth year, which is amazing. But
Right.
obviously, you said you were topping out in the low 70s as a high school senior.
Yeah.
What made you keep pushing? Because obviously, with some of the schools you were at, and I guess your status as an athlete,
Right.
you were certainly fighting an uphill battle.
No, for sure. And I think a largest part of it is first and foremost, I never stopped believing in myself. I always knew that I could make it in college baseball. I knew I could always pitch. I knew I could always play. But as far as like the skill acquisition was always my lowest hanging fruit. And also just the adversity and background I had, baseball was really the only thing I felt like I had at the time. Because again, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I was diagnosed with 3 learning disabilities. I'm actually 70% deaf in my left ear. My father passed away. So like in reality, baseball was the only thing that really kept me going. And when I was like going through the college process and when I was discovering like what plyos were, that was like I think 6 months after my dad passed. So it really was the only thing I had going for me. So that's what kept me going forward.
I know it's weird to jump to your exposure to plyos after mentioning all this adversity. I hope everyone doesn't think I'm insensitive. I'm just trying to hit on the baseball topics.
Oh, for sure.
These are the conversations SJ and I have offline. So I guess if anybody wants to tap into our phone calls, feel free. I'll throw that offer out there so we can hear a little bit more about the true road bumps in SJ's career. But I'm sure he's going to offer some detail throughout the stories. But you mentioned your exposure to plyos when you were 16, 17 years old. In a private conversation, you mentioned that was your Christmas gift that year, if I'm not mistaken. You were begging for them, and that was like your first exposure to driveline. So, I mean, even early on, you obviously had this internal drive to get better, to explore. What was your first aha moment in throwing, in pitching, that you feel gave you this feeling of belonging?
Growing up, I always knew I had a decent ability to play. Like I was always thrown on the mound because I was the most competitive pitcher. I felt like I was one of the most competitive pitchers in the state of Colorado, just as far as like, I don't care how good you are. I don't care, what your name is, where you're from, what school you're committed to, if you're a draft prospect. It's me versus you. At the end of the day, I'm going to find a way to win. And then like once I got exposed to plyos, I did my own online research as far as like what driveline is and everything. So of course I begged my mom for Christmas for plyos. I was like, I'll even pay for them myself. I'll figure out a way to do it because they weren't really cheap at the time. They were like, I think $92 because they were just so brand new and out there.
Right.
That was my exposure as far as that goes. And what I discovered, I noticed they made me better. Granted, I didn't know what I was doing. I just like looked on YouTube, and fortunately I was a visual learner. So I think I was able to roll with that. But I noticed that like I started gaining velocity over time, and by my sophomore year at Western Nebraska, again, I had topped at 88. Granted, there were some days where I was like 78 to 82, and then other days it was 85 to 88. Looking back on it, it was probably because I didn't know how to manage my workload at all, and I just fought every day, and that's probably why I ended up having this journeyman's journey, just for the fact that I simply just didn't know how to manage workload. And if I had like, the right guidance, I feel like, who knows, maybe my career could have another story, but in the end, I don't regret anything. It makes me the coach I am today, so.
For sure. Yeah. It's kind of funny as you start to figure one thing out, you get hit with another roadblock. And again, not to call these baseball roadblocks something that even compares to some of the things that you've experienced in your personal life. Again, I promise I'm not that insensitive. This is just a baseball podcast, everyone. But you run into the roadblock of acute to chronic workload ratio, and maybe not fully understanding how to assess your own readiness, which probably brings you to some of your discoveries in the private sector. So, what was your first exposure to that? Was that when you were at Push? Was that from a coach? Was that at Driveline? Working with Pulse? When did acute to chronic workload enter your life?
It definitely occurred when I trained at Driveline. So I trained in 2021. I finished my degree early at Upper Iowa, and I started my master's. Like I'm getting my second master's degree this year, which I guess
Congrats.
Thank you. But my graduation gift, my mom's like, I want to give you a graduation gift. And I try not to be that kid who asks for anything, but if she sends it my way, I'm going to take full advantage of it. So I said, hey, what are the chances I could go up to Driveline? It's something I've always wanted to do. And she's like, well, like you'll have to pay for it a little bit, but you know what? I'm going to support you. That could be your grad gift. That could be your birthday gift because my birthday's in May. So of course, graduation time. So
Combo.
yeah, exactly. When I got up there, I remember just like seeing Pulse for the first time, and I was like, "What in the world is this?" And I download the app and manage workloads, sync the data, and I was like, "This is probably why I'm not throwing hard." Every day it's like recovery days. Like you shouldn't be no higher than X amount of velocity. Yeah, I would say that was be my first exposure, and then the very next year, that summer of 2022, is when I started working at Push as a throwing intern, and that's how I was able to like help guys in that process. Because I mean, as great of a tool as Pulse is, my personal opinion, I think just the value of a radar gun's that much better because
Right.
everyone has peak velocities. Let's just say you're a 90-mile-per-hour thrower, and I'm recovery day. It's like, all right, shoot a goal to throw 74 miles per hour. That should be where you're at on a recovery day, and that's kind of like, oh, visual. It's like I can actually execute my throwing without thinking too much about like my arm speed or the torque. But Pulse is without a doubt a great tool. So
Yeah.
hope that brings some closure into it.
No, for sure. It's very hard to visualize what a certain arm speed is just because there's less exposure to arm speed across the industry. Unless you have a large background on pulse or something else that measures arm speed, it's going to be very difficult to think about what 750 RPMs really means
Right.
versus I think any thrower, especially someone playing in college or above, can picture what max velocity is 90, 91, or whatever, and then what it actually looks like on a radar gun to step things back to 73, 74.
Right.
And you obviously have instant feedback of what 73, 74 is, and you can make adjustments in a snap just like that. I want to hear what you're doing at 3PD now, like what your day to day looks like, your official title, and just talk a little bit about your short couple month experience so far.
No, yeah, my role at 3PD is, I mean, I wear multiple hats. I would say I'm considered a performance coach, so I'm the high school pitching coordinator, but I also work with plenty of college and pro guys. I'm also an assistant in the strength conditioning side of things, and I'm also doing data analyst stuff with our partnership of Flex Pro and Paradigm Sports. So I basically go over the data, help Max go over the data, and yeah, that's kind of the fun part. So I'm doing everything, and I love it.
Do you have direct training with anything in S&C? Like, have you achieved any of the letters after your name, or is it just passion from being in the industry and grinding in the weight room yourself?
I would just say I'm naturally a meathead. My sophomore year of high school, and yes, I'm going back to high school about this. My high school football defensive line coach kind of officially, unofficially adopted me just because my parents were not really going through the best time. It definitely was like that misguidance that we're talking about. It's like we all want to achieve a goal, but not all of us know how to get there. I kind of hit my growth spurt a little bit. I was like 6'3" at the time. I'm now 6'4", and I was 175 pounds. So he was just like, I think you have potential to be an all-state defensive lineman. I mean, I still don't know what saw me in that end. He just said, I want you to train with my so his sons are named James and Ben. And he's like, I want you to train with them after school every day during weights, and we're gonna get you 100 times stronger. And I consider James and Ben like brothers, and Coach Cortez, shout out to him, like my second dad. And that was like by far the greatest experience of my life. And I think that's actually what sparked me into coaching in general, because
Hmm.
I saw this great quote a while back saying that like a good coach can change a game, but a great coach can change a life. And that was life changing more than anything. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's something I've always had interest in. I never majored in exercise science in college. I'm dyslexic. I've never been the greatest at math. So I figured I'm not going to set myself up for failure. So I just kind of just learned the skill myself, and picking Blake McRae's, our strength and conditioning coach's brain every single day. I'm just trying to build connections at that end because a lot of my best friends are strength and conditioning coaches. For me, it's just learning all around and just being a meathead myself, just diving deep.
I can relate to that on our side with Flex Pro Grip. It's not like Daryl or I achieved any degrees, really, whether it's exercise science, whether it's kinesiology, physiology. Neither of us are doctors, MD or PhD, in
Right.
anything related to human anatomy or muscle function. But what we did was dedicate ourselves to learning as much as we could, just live on publicly available information and YouTube University, basically. PubMed is our best friend. It is really remarkable how much information is readily available for free. And if you are dedicated, you can figure these things out and learn just as much as you could with any degree associated with it.
Oh, 1000%. All it takes is really commitment and consistency when it comes to that. And just like anything you do great in life, if there's a will, there's a way. I loved how you described that. So thank you.
Yeah, usually we finish it with, no, we're not doctors, but we stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. That's one of those millennial commercials. You might even be a little too young for that one, but no, that was prime television. So anybody in the like 30, 45, maybe older age range for sure knows that one. So shout out you guys for consuming way too much television. Let's get back on the floor with PD. You're the lead pitching trainer for the high school group. What does day to day look like for you guys on the training floor?
Well, as of right now, since we're in the middle of summer, it's primarily the college pitching group. So I'm mostly working with college guys right now.
Okay.
So that's basically my main focus. I do have a couple pro guys under my belt right now. One of them's actually flying in for assessment, I think, in next 2 weeks, and one of them's actually living in my living room right now. It's the indie ball grind. He unfortunately got released, and he's like, "Dude, I need a place to train." And I was like, "Look no further than Waterford, Michigan." He's originally from Florida, so he had no idea what he was getting into. But so far, from everything I'm told from him, is that he loves it. So it's kind of my day to day. And then after that, I'm helping out on the weight room side, and I'm just doing my own research. Like today, I posted a Twitter thread. Tomorrow I'm planning on marketing 3PD on a TikTok video slash Instagram video. So my day to day really just depends on like what's asked of me and what problems can I solve. My day is like, hey, if I can solve one problem, hell, like, let's go.
The next piece of this, where I was going with the previous question, obviously everybody wants to come in to throw harder. What, other than velocity, are most of these players coming to see you guys for?
We do have a lot of high level throwers, and the next step is like, guys, someone who throws very hard. Like, what's preventing him from being maybe a Division 1 pitcher to an MLB prospect? And a large part of it either has to do with like maybe they're great on the skill side, like we clearly know that, but maybe they don't have like that wipeout pitch or whatever, or maybe they lack so much strength that that's the reason why they are not 97 versus 94. So that's kind of like what we're figuring out. So it can be mechanical even for a high level thrower, but it could also just be like guidance, like we're talking about earlier with the workload management. So that's kind of the problems that we're solving more than anything. But it's also still like one of the greatest problems I really love solving is what can make a high level thrower a lot better. And so far with that, like that pro guy I'm mentioning, like the problems I'm dealing with right now is how do I get this guy from 94 to 96? And turns out he's just very weak in the upper body. So I told him like, hey, just take the rest of the summer off as far as like getting off a mound. Like you're still going to throw, you're still going to have your high intent days, but dude, get big and strong with the upper body. If you look at like the hardest throwers in the world, like the Paul Skeens, the Aroldis Chapmans, those guys look like middle linebackers or defensive ends in the NFL. So therefore, it's like, why not build that upper body? Like, what's the worst case scenario that happens?
I know you guys are using FlexPro Grip as part of your testing gamut, but are there other things that you are using to test? Like you said this athlete who can hit 94, but for whatever reason, 94 isn't good enough for him, whether it's the way it fits with his arsenal or just more velo, let's face it, is pretty much always better because you can get away with more. But
Absolutely.
you said what's holding him back could very well be his upper body strength. So how did you guys figure it out? Was it as simple as his bench press sucks? Or is it just he can't create a lot of force, whether it's doing like med ball throws or like plyo push-ups or things like that?
It was without a doubt just the weight room side. Very first week in the athlete, he didn't have like a structured lifting program. So I said, all right, for your assessment week, I'm just going to give you like some just basic exercises to kind of see like what you're doing. I'll have you log your weights. That way, like it just tells me where you're at. And when I see him doing like 70-pound dumbbells, I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, and also on top of that, communication. Like I think that's a skill that like really gets underestimated for sure. Is definitely the art of communication. Like you can figure out a lot of problems just by simply talking to the athlete without even just looking at him. Just could be a mental adjustment, or it can just be as like, yeah, I've just never trained upper body before. In his case, he's just never really trained upper body before, in which he told me after I saw that he benched 70-pound dumbbells. And on top of that, you get to know the athlete in which how you communicate best with him. In his case, like with him having a poor bench press and knowing his background a little bit, I could just casually just say to him like, 70-pound dumbbell. Yeah, I remember being in middle school, like small ends like that. The Flex Pro, I mean, he got a score of 0, so that just proves how much force he's actually producing. So just imagine the whole offseason just clean that area up. I mean, sky could potentially be the limit.
I want to go back to that assessment question. So I guess the next piece, you said communication plays a massive role. You can find out so much from just talking to a player. And for this guy, like it didn't really take fancy technology for you guys to figure out what his lowest hanging fruit is.
Right.
In a lot of cases, do you really think it is that simple? Like, do you think as an industry we tend to overcomplicate because we have fancy tech and a bunch of assessments? Sometimes you can just watch a kid move or watch a kid go through a workout and figure out if the weight room is the lowest hanging fruit.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it goes back to like mastering the basics. Like, and that's like when we're I know you and I like are going to talk about drill selection and that, and this is like part of my process of drill selection. It's like, all right, can they execute the simple drill, such as like a step back, a walking wind up, or can they execute like a simple goblet squat? You can just tell a lot just by that end. And if they can't execute it, it's like, okay, let's take some baby steps. I mean, I know with you being a father soon, one step at a time. It's
For real.
athletes are really just no different as far as that end goes. So it's more just like you learn a lot from watching and asking questions. So I hope that answers that question.
No, it totally does. And I think it provides a decent segue into drill selection. So, SJ, I'm just going to throw it right back to you. How do you go about selecting drills for an athlete?
I mean, I wish it was just a simple answer, but it's a very complex answer. But to make it simple, I look at the athlete first. Is he able to be a good athlete in the weight room? Like one of the cool things that we do is at 3PD versus like other training facilities, at least the ones I've been at. Like I mean, Driveline does this pretty well, but in different group slots, we have all the college guys come together. We do a group dynamic, and then we do like a different game every day, whether that's like med ball, volleyball, or running routes with a football, or like today I had to demonstrate how to do a proper handstand on a wall. And you'll see like right away, like guys are a little hesitant and some guys are the quote unquote athletes just have no problem. You can figure out a lot just by, the athlete side. But then step number two is figuring out the skill side because there are really horrible athletes out there who are very elite throwers. I mean, you kind of just hear like the common terminology is like, oh, he's stiff as a billboard when he throws. Therefore, he's probably not the greatest athlete in the world, but hell, he's a hell of a thrower and he can make all that work. So it's definitely going athlete first, then thrower second. And let's just say this, if it's like a little bit of the in between, like he's not really a great athlete, he's not really a great thrower. All right, how can we blend both of them together? So that's kind of my personal process. And if it's just like the basic high school kid, like I'll probably just give him the simplest things, like goes back to executing the basics. Like we're not here to change the wheel. We're just here just to give you some guidance. And if you master that, let's go to the next step.
Let's kind of hit our different age groups or skill levels to a certain extent. High school kid walks in, it's your run of the mill high school kid, let's say no real injury history, just a kid who wants to play college baseball. Is there a typical drill set that that kid is normally going to get on the throwing side? I know it is individual dependent, but maybe if you look across all your high school programs, are there a couple of drills that maybe are implemented in like 75% of those populations?
If you asked me this last year, I would just say like every kid should have reverse throws, pivot picks, walking windups. Now, me being in the stage I am and just watching every level of thrower, my answer has changed. Like I still give every athlete reverse throws because I definitely think it's the best exercise and plyo drill to work on the back of the shoulder because the back of the shoulder really doesn't get worked on a whole lot. Not to mention it gets the T-spine and core kind of loose. But I give them, instead of like just pivot picks, I give them dead mans or I give them lassos or I give them 10 toes. That way they can really just figure out just like how to be a better thrower. Because at the end of the day, throwing is throwing. Like all we're changing is the path to get there.
The first major insight I actually had on the throwing is just throwing across the board concept came from Peyton Lobdell. So for anyone that's looking for an interesting conversation on the podcast, go find the Peyton Lobdell episode. He definitely has an interesting throwing background, but that's one of the things that he talked about. Although pitching and throwing are often talked about in different sects, they should be treated roughly the same. And it all comes back to what you said, being an athlete, understanding how to move, and just matching that movement to the constraints. So for pitching, you're just on a slope. So you have to figure out how to match that plane coming down the hill and catch that momentum, shift it up into the ball, and let it rip towards home plate. So I guess maybe let's step this forward then. Let's stick with a specific athlete. I don't know if you want to just name one of your athletes John Doe, take us through what he presented us with or presented you with and how you prescribe drills for him. I would love if you could just go case study mode for us.
No, yeah, absolutely. One of the throwers that I have, he actually just committed. I don't think he'll mind me mentioning his name. His name's actually ironically John. John Whiteside is his name. Very good athlete, very good. Like if you just watch him, you just think of the word smooth.
Okay.
Like like it's his delivery is just so clean. It's so, I mean, it's pretty buttery. However, he doesn't block very well, and he doesn't like have the greatest hip shoulder separation, which isn't the worst, but however, you could clearly tell that like those areas are limiting him from throwing, let's just say 95 versus topping 93 on a great day. Because like you
Okay.
can tell right away that he's a great athlete. Like he pulled down 100 multiple times with a baseball. Like he just casually told me, he's like, that felt really easy. It's like, okay, great. So my assessment process through him was just mixing up the variants of throwing every day, and whether that's not only just the drill selection, because like another thing I'll mention about the drill selection is I'm not the biggest fan of giving everyone, like at least on the high intent days, I'm not a fan of giving every athlete the same throwing drills for every high intent day. It's like we separate them here at 3PD, we separate them between like red, yellow, green, which red being your recovery days, yellow being your hybrid C or hybrid B type of days, which we can't have mound blend in between. And then the green days would be like, rip it. On the green days, I give him primarily rotational drills because clearly he's very good at rotating. So let's save it for the days that we want to rotate fast. So on his yellow days, so his hybrid B days, I actually mix it up for him every week, to tell you the truth, just because we're trying to like work on separation, but he doesn't need to have like the max separation in order for him to reach his goals. He just needs to improve on that a little bit. Therefore, he can be a little more forceful with the ground. So I think that process had actually helped him make progress in the summer. And also, like, if we're mentioning like how to assess an athlete, him on the pitch design side, like very good sweeper. Cannot express how great his sweeper is. Like, just the grossest pitch. Pretty good riding fastball. Can be dead zone at times based off the intensity, but like that's another thing. That's a whole nother topic. Intensity plays a big role in how a pitch profile actually goes. He shows a pretty good curveball considering his low slot. Like he throws a curveball like around 5 feet. Remind you, the guy's 6'4". The guy is 6'4", throws a 5-foot slot and pretty decent curveball. However, he lacked a pitch going arm side. So showed him some grips. I wish I had a better story about how great his changeup was, or how great the development of his changeup. But it was just as simple as just like this pitch grip right here, and he was able to roll with it. And all of a sudden, it's 5 VB and 20 inches arm side. So that just proves how communication and just giving him something simple could really go. So I know we went a lot of different routes, but that is how I assess athletes on
Yeah,
that current case study.
don't worry. I'm gonna bring us back down to earth because you're not off the stand just yet when it comes to drill selection. I would love if you could get a little bit more specific when you talk about those deficiencies he has. So
Mhm.
lead leg block, separation. You did say separation for him isn't something that you're necessarily trying to chase more, according to biomechanics for this kid, may be better, like according to an assessment. But of course, it's not the end of the world. You guys just believe it could potentially help him transfer force better. So what are drills or movement solutions that you are trying to give him either to improve that lead leg block or improve separation, or is it really just exposing him to different stimuli?
It's definitely a combination of everything you just said. Different stimuli, in which like in his catch play, I make sure he throws a baseball as least amount possible, at least on the yellow days. Just like I'm a big fan of like having a softball being thrown. What I found out about John very early is that he's very good at throwing a football. Like he could actually, if he wanted to, he could probably play Division I college football as a quarterback. Like I'm not sure how he is reading defenses, but like if we're talking about just like pure raw athleticism and pure talent, he is a great thrower. So just mixing up the objects as far as like 7 ounce, 6 ounce, softball, like making sure he's doing different types of drills. And by the drills, I mean like different constraints. Like I make sure that even though we're trying to improve on the lead leg block, like let's just try to be athletic. Like let's see how far you could throw a ball like as far as a 7 ounce goes on your one knee, or even just a split stance. That way, like we can improve maybe the upper half of the motion. Now, as far as like the lower half of the motion, one drill I've been like absolutely flirting with, and I don't really have an official name for it, but it's very similar to like a step back and a janitor. So it's like, I call it the 3-step as of right now. Basically, you step forward, step back into a janitor, and then you rotate fast. All that without moving your back foot. That way I can prove its separation and forceful on the ground. And I actually can pull up his program right now and see what I've been, because I change him every week for him. So let's see what I have for him this week. I have him doing the Darvish drill this week as far as that end goes. So, I mean, that's those who don't know what the Darvish drill is, very similar to you, Darvish. Basically shows the pelvis to the wall, then comes back into a coil, and then be forceful down the mound. So kind of giving him a different goal every week.
Now let's jump ahead into maybe arsenal design. You started to tease it a little bit with this individual. You talked about what I think is a really cool topic, how intent can impact pitch profiles. So maybe that will be our jumping off point. Please just take that topic and run with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when we add like the yellow or the touch and feel days, is being on a track man really the most important thing? In the grand scheme of things, probably not. You just want to feel the mound. You want to like feel your shapes. You want to make sure everything's going. But at the same time, like this is where we're talking about the intent. I'm not a big fan. And I tried to do this with guys at SCSU and Erskine, but some guys like throwing off speeds on their recovery days. Do I think it's the brightest move? Probably not. But you know what? Who am I to say that? But intent really does play a role as far as like how a pitch goes, because I mean, a lot of the biggest adjustments in the pitch design process is the guys just simply need to throw the pitch harder. Like the grip is there, the movement is there. They maybe cannot find the zone, but like have them rip it like a fastball. Next thing you know, they find the zone, not to mention the pitch moves X amount of inches. I mean, I even had an athlete today, just told him to throw his slider a little bit harder. And then all of a sudden he threw it for a strike with 5 more inches of horizontal break. It could be just as simple as that. I am a big fan of just the intent of the pitch can result into the overall movement. So
I don't think it is ever worth doing pitch design at anything sub max intent. Now, can you get away with it at 90, 95% quote unquote RPE? Sure, maybe. Like maybe you can. I'm not going to say no, but now shifting this conversation to the rehab side, it's incredibly important to incorporate breaking stuff or off speed in a return to throw because you need to accumulate a tolerance to that stress. Throwing a
correct.
breaking pitch has a different stress than throwing a fastball or throwing a changeup or throwing a split finger. All these different grips affect the medial elbow and the flexor mass differently. So you need exposure to it. So for instance, going back to what you said, I personally have no issues with guys throwing off speeds on a recovery day or on a low to mid intent day, but being concerned about a shape on a low intent day or mid intent day, that's asinine to me. Like
Oh,
there's no point. There is no point in trying to do pitch design if you are nowhere close to simulating what's going on the mound. And I guess maybe that's the other piece. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. If anyone is ever concerned about the shape of a breaking pitch when they're down the left field line playing catch with a partner, you need a reality check because
oh, 100%.
you throw on a slope in the game. I don't care what your curveball looks like when you're throwing it to your partner in the outfield 4 hours before first pitch. That is not going to impact the way the ball moves when there's a hitter in the box and the lights are on and you're coming down that slope.
No, I most certainly agree. I think like in reality, if you are going to do that, it should just be based off feels. Like saying, "Hey, I threw this today. I worked on it today. Even though I didn't do it off the slope, I felt it today." And I think that's like a common misconception that not only just like coaches preach, but also just like athletes believe in. It's like, yeah, it's not the end of the world. And you mentioned something great in the rehab side of things. Throwing those off-speed pitches in the rehab is vital. You know, with my experience at push, driveline, and hell, even like with college right now, I noticed that some guys' arsenals, like even just like as simple as like being a pronator or supinator, change even after like a life-changing surgery. Therefore, they really need to be dialed in on that as far as like intent goes, making sure they are at the right stage of doing it, because it really plays a big role in like how your career is going to shape up that upcoming season.
SJ, there's no doubt about that. I'm in 100% agreement. Obviously, I started the point, but given what you said, the pronation, supination, how that changes after a major surgery, there's so much of a learning curve as well as the health implications that need to be considered when it comes to that on ramp. When we're in the on ramp post surgery or in rehab, we're trying to come back from multiple things. Not only are we trying to prove to ourselves, prove to our bodies that we are healthy again and can perform this task, we also actually need to perform statistically or metrically. Because let's face it, feeling good is one thing, but being good is another. We would love to reward everyone who feels good coming out of rehab. Unfortunately, baseball doesn't reward you for feeling good. Baseball rewards you for being good. That's just another piece I wanted to make sure that we hit on there. But I want to keep this on arsenal design for a little bit, or on pitch design. You did bring up sweepers, and I know you are passionate specifically about a pitch known as the hand of God slider. So I want to give you a little bit of a runway to talk about that.
How I would describe the hand of God slider, and it was brought up to me at Driveline. That terminology came from Chris Langan. Shout out to him and just everything he's done with like just knowing what we know about shapes. But the hand of God slider, as of 2021, was only thrown 1% in the MLB. And so, how I would describe a hand of God slider, a lot of people describe it as like a rising sweeper. I like to describe it as, and this could just be the fact that I transformed the submarine halfway through college, was I describe it like imagine a Tyler Rogers slider, just a UFO slider, but from an over the top arm. That's how I would describe it.
Tyler Rogers, for our non MLB crew, is a submariner.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, the lowest slot arm you could possibly find out there.
A
And that,
true knuckle scraper.
correct, 100%. So one guy I had at SCSU, when I recruited him, I saw his TrackMan plot and he said, hey, I want to learn a cutter because I think that could blend in very well. And I most certainly agreed. So I showed him just a simple pitch grip. It's like, all right, like imagine showing the back of your pinky and throwing that. And next thing you know, that sucker just is riding 15 inches, moving negative 13 inches on average, and throwing like 81 miles per hour off his 91 to 93 mile per hour fastball. So he was able to use that this year. And next thing you know, he leads the NSIC in save. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm researching more moving forward. Like I remember like when over spring break, we were in Arizona for our spring break at CSU. So I decided to stop and push for a couple days and talk to Amato about it. And he's like, and then he just casually tells me, he's like, yeah, Walker Buehler throws that. And he throws that at 90. And I was like, that's unfair. That's unfair. But to give a little brief description, we don't know all the answers about the hand of God slider or even like the classification, but it's something I'm obsessed with. It's something I'm trying to discover. And one thing I've learned about the little, let's just say the little evidence I have of it, the most common grip is like close to a two-seam orientation. I mean, those who are watching on YouTube, I'll just show them right here. Two-seam orientation, your pointer finger is in the middle in between the train tracks. And the idea is like almost trying to backspin a slider or flip off the catchers. And the reason why I say like little sample size because I've seen it from all different types of arm angles, such as like the low three-quarter guys. So prime example would be like the Joe Ryan arm slot. And I've also seen it from the big over the top, like the Tyler Glasnows. So, that's something I'm thinking to myself, can it be taught? That would be my next discovery. But at the same time, the reason why I don't think like guys really are aiming to teach it right now is because it has to blend in the Arsenal's vacuum. Like, is it truly going to make a pitch better, or are we chasing like a max movement? Because if we're chasing a max movement, it might not always be the best solution for the arm itself. Now, if we're chasing a pitch that can blend in to a pitcher's arsenal in a vacuum very well, then yeah, that should be our goal. So the point I'm making is keep the main thing, but it would be cool to discover more about the hand of God.
And you offered the velo for Walker Buehler's as well as the individual at SCSU. Are you normally seeing it at sweeper velocities? How hard off the fastball are we normally seeing it? Or can we not even make that distinction because so few hand of God sliders are being thrown?
I would say somewhere in between. Like we've seen so few, but the little sample size I have seen, it's usually around gyro slider velocity. So
Really, that hard?
yeah, so like I said, the guy at SCSU, he was like 80, 81 with it with a 91 to 93 mile per hour fastball. So roughly 10 off the fastball. Gyros are typically 10, 9 to 10 off the fastball. And sweepers are typically 11 to 14. So that's the small sample size I have. Again, this is like some project in the future I would like to calculate. So I'm writing notes every day. And if you have someone, if those who are listening on the podcast, if you have somebody who's throwing like a hand of God type of slider, please send it my way. I would love to just dive deep into it more.
I might have a couple of names for you offline. I don't want to disclose too much of what a few of these guys are doing because I know some of these guys are always tinkering and some of it's org dependent. But I've got a guy or two that we work with that maybe you want to look into their data and we can figure something out. So just remind me offline. I got you. You mentioned not necessarily knowing who is a candidate for this pitch. Can it be taught? When should it be introduced in the arsenal? So for you on the coaching side, is it literally just you're trying to teach maybe a cutter, you're trying to teach maybe a sweeper, and it just happens? Like, is it literally that much of like a quote unquote miracle at this point?
I would say so, yes. Just simply based off the name, the hand of God. Let's just say those who are religious or not, let's just say the Lord just blessed down and say, I'm going to choose you to throw this pitch. That's, or, those who are not religious. 1% of the MLB threw it in 2021. So you could just be that 1%. So
Okay.
I guess that's an interesting way to think about it. And the most interesting thing about this pitch is like I've seen both pronators and supinators throw it.
That was my next question.
So that therefore it's like that just proves how much data we have on it. Is like we don't have enough to really classify like is someone a candidate for it.
Definitely food for thought. I'm excited to dig into this a little bit more. I have one more rabbit hole that I really want to go down with you, SJ,
Let's do
and that is a revisitation to a Twitter thread that you threw out into the world a month or so ago at this point. I guess maybe at the time of the release we might be pushing 2 months on that thread. But
it.
regarding the importance or lack thereof of plyovelos. So let's
Uh,
start with the basic summary of the thread. So I'm going to give you the floor for that, and I'll ask you some questions in the process.
let's do
Please
it.
take it away.
Well, as far as like plyo velo goes, we got to think about it this way. It's like some people might think like I think plyo velo is bad. I don't think it's bad, but I definitely think a lot of like there's some coaches out there who take away from the main thing. Are we chasing a number on the plyo velo, or are we trying to get the athlete better at throwing a baseball off the mound? A lot of coaches, I hope all of them would say we're trying to get better off the mound. Therefore, I think plyo velo is not really the route to go. However, I do think it is a great way to start a velo phase because we're coming off a like 4 to 6 week on ramp, and the athlete has not really had many days that he threw very high intent. And matter of fact, it'll be his first day throwing 100%, and this is just a great intro way to have him throw relatively hard for the first time without blowing his workload. So I think it's an excellent intro. However, would I ever program a guy to do plyo velo for 6 weeks? No.
When might you actually consider doing plyovelo testing, and who might that be for? I guess you mentioned early in a program for introduction to high velocity, but are there other cases that you might be using it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, just like I said, introduction to the velocity phase, but it can also identify low hanging fruits. Like when I was at Push Performance, there was this one big leaguer. I'm not going to mention his name, probably because he'll be pissed at me, but he really sucked. If we're going based off the standard plyo set, the blue, red, yellow, gray, he was really bad. If we're talking about putting full effort in, he was really bad at throwing the blue and red. Like I'm pretty sure my numbers were better than his. And I topped out at 84, but he throws 96 with a gray ball and he throws 97 in game. So therefore it's like, okay, he has very elite arm speeds. Going back to the drill selection that we're talking about and the workload management, it goes like, okay, yellow days, the lightest ball he should throw is a red ball. which is 8 ounces, 225 grams. That way we can manage the workload and we can keep 97 on the days he needs to throw 97. So that's like how I would view plyo velo. And it's also just like if you're in the right environment, like the drive line or the push or the 3PD's, and you have like all your buddies around you yelling you to hit a number, it is the most exciting day, I will say. It is fun to rip some. But the idea is to keep the main thing as far as throwing a baseball goes. Like at the end of the day, we're trying to get better at throwing a baseball, not a gray plyo, because no coach cares about your gray plyo velo.
I do really like that you mentioned doing plyo velo testing almost to set up the parameters for how to use plyos to warm up properly or to pursue velo or pursue a movement change or mechanical adjustment. People don't think about that. At least I don't think about that commonly. If we're ripping a ball way too fast, it's, as you said, going to spike workload or maybe unnecessarily stress something. But
Right.
if we know that we can put a 7, 8 ounce ball in a guy's hand and it's going to slow him down, it's probably easier to make adjustments that day. Or maybe we can keep workload at a manageable level to ensure that the guy's recovered and ready to go the next time he's out on the mound. So I think that's a great look into the applications of plyo velo aside from just literally chasing velocity. You can use it to set the guardrails for a more successful throwing program.
Absolutely, because plyos are a tool at the end of the day. Like everything that we use are tools. I think that's another misconception is that everyone says plyos are bad. It's like plyos are a tool, just like weightlifting, just like bands. At the end of the day, everything is just a tool to make us better. And I think if coaches out there just understand and are educated about it, I think their opinions will change. And that the same goes with players. Like everyone just says plyos make my arm feel bad. It's like, well, you're probably doing them wrong. It's kind of like saying back squatting is bad for you. It's not the actual exercise, it's more like how you're doing it. So I think if we change the mindset of like how we approach things versus the actual product, then I think we'll make the right steps moving forward. And that goes with anyone and everyone.
That concludes my line of questioning. At this point, I'll open it up to you if you feel we missed anything in the process. If there's anything you want to highlight before I let you go.
No, you hit the nail on the head on everything. Those who are out there, feel free to always DM me for questions. I'm always looking for a topic to deep dive and research because at the age of 26, I know for a fact I don't have all the answers in the world, nor will I ever have all the answers in the world. I'm always trying to sit there and learn and trying to improve my skills. And this is going to be my marketing tool right here. But like, hey, if you're looking for a great place to train or looking for remote training, look no further than 3PD. So that's all I have to say.
Perfect. I actually did think of one last question I want to hit you with. I said the defense rests, but I apologize. We're back on. We're calling you to the stand one more time.
Let's do it.
What is a deep dive that you are into right now? It can't be the Hand of God slider because you already mentioned it. So I want to know what right now is keeping you up at night, or when you go home, when you actually take this car to the place that you sleep, what are you looking at on the internet to try to get better?
And this one will be nonstop. And I even posted a thread, ironically, today about it. It's command. I will live and die on the hill that 90% of command is mental. Some people think it's 100% mental, but I firmly believe, just like what Yogi Berra says about the game of baseball, it's 90% mental. The other 10 is physical, but the other 10% of the physical side is kind of like, all right, is it mechanics? Is it arsenal? How it's used? Is it your physical condition? Is it your training or lack of training? So to me, it's command. It's going to be command for a while.
I'll take it. We'll ask for a check-in at some point, or maybe we'll just monitor your Twitter to see what breakthroughs you have. I did see that come across my screen today as we record this, Tuesday, July 22nd, for anyone that wants to go find this on SJ's Twitter feed, because this won't come out for a few weeks. So we'll consider this the bookmark for everyone to go back and check it out. But SJ, I know you mentioned 3PD, you mentioned reaching out to you. How about you hit everyone with the socials?
Yeah, absolutely. Those who know how to spell my last name, so my baseball page is Mousseau Baseball. Look up SJ Mousseau. Follow me on both accounts. Feel free to DM me on both accounts. It's SJ Mousseau, that or Mousseau Baseball. And then on Twitter, I was 15 years old when I created the Twitter, so I forgot the U on the last name. Shout out dyslexia, but it's SJMOUSSEA on Twitter. I haven't bothered to change it. I mean, why? Why should I? But that's the best way to reach out to me.
Perfect. And then 3PD's socials.
Yeah, 3PD Performance on Twitter, 3PD Performance on Instagram. Simple as that.
Perfect, man. Well, I appreciate the time today. This was an excellent conversation. I believe most of the talks we have, you're in some sort of transportation. I'm just happy this time the transportation was not moving.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. And best part is we had Wi-Fi pretty much 95% of the conversation. I mean, we might as well say it out. We had a test run 2 weeks ago, and I was in my girlfriend's car in middle of nowhere, Iowa on hotspot, and we might as well have it refresh. And thank God we did it. I'm not a lot of bad connection this talk.
Yeah, we fought through anything we might have faced, but yeah, I flushed that last performance that we tried to put on. I deleted that thing as soon as it downloaded, and I chose to forget about it as soon as humanly possible. SJ, this was a great chat today. I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your life journey, and of course to all the listeners out there, thanks for laying back with us.